Now, after domestic violence charities and helplines have reported a 66% rise in calls and 300% increase in visits to their website during lockdown, supermarkets have started to offer support for victims of domestic abuse. They are collaborating with the government, who are introducing a code word that can be said to staff, who will then take the person to a safe place in the store where they can call police or the National Domestic Abuse Helpline. So, is this a good idea, and do you think it will actually help victims?
Being somebody who was subjected to domestic violence for a period of time, it's a great idea in theory, but I myself, the first person that I wanted to speak to was my best friend.
Yeah.
And I think I've always said I was too scared to even speak to her about it for fear of her saying, "Oh, sort yourself out," and because if you're not in it, you don't kind of understand what's going on. And so I think the embarrassment for me, I don't think I'd take myself to somebody and speak to someone in a shop and give a code word for fear that I might have a new starter at that supermarket for the day who doesn't actually know what the code word is, and then you're having to explain what your oh, can I speak? And then I just think the confidentiality of it might it would concern me for going to speak to somebody, and then they're speaking to somebody else, and then they're speaking to somebody else, and then before you know it, before you leave, everybody knows that you're going through some sort of abuse.
Do you think there's an argument that some people feel it's easier to talk to a stranger almost than it is to somebody within your social circle because of what you said is the shame?
Personally, I found it embarrassing speaking to anybody. I just didn't want anyone to know, and I pretended that it wasn't happening. So, I think you've got to get yourself past that hurdle first of actually realising that, no, this is not what's supposed to happen, this is not right, to do something about it. If there was a phone number that I could have phoned that I knew about, then I'd phone that phone number before I'd go to a...
Well, that's where Tesco's they've come at this from a slightly different angle. What they're doing is they're sharing the phone number for domestic abuse helpline on its receipt. So actually, there you go. There's a number there. And that, to me, strikes me as a very useful tool, because especially if you're living with a partner who is abusing you through coercive control, if they're going through your phone and they're checking any numbers, or even your viewer history on your computer, at least as a way for you to get a number. And going back to what you're saying about speaking to someone in person, I think... personally, the embarrassment of speaking to a friend is more difficult because they know the partner. And normally, men, and I'm saying in this instance men, of course it can be women the other way around, are extremely charming to the outside world. And it's more difficult for a friend. What? They're like that? How on earth? And then you're constantly, you feel like you're having to almost justify it, whereas to a stranger, you hope that they would take what you're saying on face value.
Well, I'd actually like to think that you could go into any shop if you're going through any form of domestic abuse and ask for help, and somebody will give it to you.
It's that normality of going to the supermarket, though, I guess. In a way, it may be a good idea, because I remember interviewing a domestic abuse victim once, and she said that her husband would time her on the school run, and if she wasn't back by a certain time. So in some ways, that very simple act of going to the supermarket gives you that little bit of freedom to get away and to talk to somebody.
It gives you that little bit of freedom, but if you don't come back in time, according to that person that's at home waiting for you, then they're going to be...
Brenda, can I also say that if you're in an abusive relationship, that might not be physical abuse, it might be mental abuse and controlling behaviour. They will most definitely take your phone off you and only give it to you when it suits them, and they will monitor your phone and your laptop if you're even allowed one. While I think this is all a very good idea, I kind of agree with Brenda. The idea of going into a supermarket and being so distraught anyway, they have to find the room. It's a bit like we used to have the smoking room. Is it like a special room that someone's got a key to? I know it sounds cynical, but you can imagine the situation where someone is absolutely at their wits' end, and then they're going through a series of members of staff. And also, I see this as part of a trend where supermarkets are trying to infiltrate services that councils and used to provide, social services used to provide, and it's a kind of move by supermarkets to kind of make themselves more essential, if you like, in our lives. Where what we really need are highly trained experts and people who've done the proper training to help us get out of that situation. I mean, certainly when I was in an abusive relationship, I did not discuss it with anyone because I realised I'd made a complete fool of myself by putting up with this. But at the time, you're almost paralysed. You just don't know what to do. You might have the number on your supermarket till, but then it's like telling more people what a mess you made of things. You do blame yourself an incredibly large.
How did you get out of it, Janet?
I used to go and stay with somebody else. I'd leave my own house and go and stay with somebody else. And then in the end, I was actually getting divorced, but that person was in my husband was in my house. And I don't want to go into too much detail because to this day, I'm slightly fearful of him, which is an incredible thing to say. Yeah. But I rang his mother and I basically threatened his mother. Not threatened nastily, but I said what was going on. And after that, she persuaded him to leave. But, you know, I felt you are paralysed when you're. It's so hard for people. I know that Andrea and Brenda, we've talked about it so much. You just feel the outside world, you look normal, but it's not normal.
And you know, Janet,
so while I applaud this,
can I just say, Janet, I think, and I mean this with so much love and respect, I think someone like you, who everyone views as a strong, strident woman, if someone like you can experience something like this and still feel vulnerable by it, this just shows how insidious the experience is. We do have to go to a break right now, but we just want to say if you've been affected by anything that we've just spoken about, please head to our website and you will find helplines and information there for you.